How about this for a headline? Elon Musk once lent $6.7 million to buy a home from him. Now he's foreclosing. Most of us out here know Elon Musk as the innovator behind Tesla and the electric car boom. He's also the guy experimenting with brain implants with his company Neuralink. He's currently making efforts to ensure we're on track to colonize Mars. Or maybe you just know him as the richest man in the world. He's got a net worth of around $240 billion. But I didn't know that Elon was also a lender, or maybe more like a loan shark. Today, we need to figure out exactly how this whole situation unfolded. The home that we're talking about today is located at 10930 Chelan Road. It's a 2,700 square foot, 4-bedroom house built in 1951 in the heart of Bel Air, California. It's actually a house with some serious Hollywood history. This place was previously owned by Gene Wilder. He's the guy who's most known for his role as Willy Wonka in the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie from 1971. Gene bought the house in 1976. He paid just $300,000 for it at the time, and he lived there for over 30 years before he sold it in 2007 for $2.7 million. Apparently, the fact that Gene Wilder was a former owner of this house is exactly why Elon Musk wanted to own it. In 2013, he bought it off of the new owners for a big premium. Elon paid $6.75 million. Pretty amazing payday. Those owners profited $4 million after owning the house for just a couple of years. And I guess they were at the right place at the right time, because this was right around when Elon was building up a pretty massive property portfolio. If you remember though, in 2020, Elon kind of changed his mind about all this real estate that he was buying. He famously tweeted out on May 1st, 2020 that he's selling almost all physical possessions. He will own no house. But he did post a follow-up tweet that there was just one stipulation. He owned Gene Wilder's old house, and he needed to be sure that it would not be torn down or not lose any of its soul. Okay, so Elon buys the Gene Wilder house in 2013. By 2020, he makes that announcement that he has decided to sell all of his stuff. And it didn't take long before somebody came out of the woodwork who wanted to buy the Gene Wilder house off of him. Elon actually got approached by Gene Wilder's nephew. Well, after a little back and forth, Elon agrees to sell this house to Gene's nephew. He sells the property to the nephew and his wife. These guys paid $7 million for the house, and the couple financed the deal with a $6.7 million loan from Elon Musk. This type of a transaction might sound weird, but it's actually not all that uncommon. It's called seller financing, and it's an agreement where the seller handles the mortgage instead of a bigger financial institution. If you haven't heard of these types of deals before, I'll give you a quick example. So let's just say I wanted to sell you my house under seller financing terms. For round numbers, we can say that you want to buy my house for $1 million. Also, to keep things simple, let's just assume that I own my home free and clear, meaning I do not currently have a mortgage. Well, option one for you as the buyer is you could just hand me $1 million if you happen to have $1 million cash in the bank. Option two is you go the traditional financing route. You walk into a big bank like Chase or Wells Fargo. They agree to give you a mortgage, probably for about $900,000. So in this case, you'd get a loan for $900,000 from Wells Fargo. You'd put up $100,000 of your own cash as the down payment, and you'd basically give it all to me at closing. Or option three, if we go the seller financing route, would be that you still put up that $100,000 down payment, just like you would have done in option two. But instead of you getting the $900,000 from Wells Fargo, you're going to get the $900,000 from me as the seller. So I'm pretty much going to act as the bank or as your mortgage company, meaning after closing, you will still technically own the house on paper, but I'm going to be your lender, so you'll be required to pay me monthly payments until that $900,000 loan is paid in full. And I realize that was kind of a lot of math, so hopefully nobody fell asleep. Anyways, this is how Elon Musk structured the deal with Gene Wilder's nephew. The nephew put up a $300,000 down payment. Then Elon acted as the lender for the remaining $6.7 million. We could assume that the only reason that Elon was willing to do this is because, remember, he wanted to make sure that the house was preserved and it wasn't torn down by some developer. So I'm guessing that he liked the idea of selling the house to the nephew because he knew that the the nephew wouldn't just go tearing it down to make way for some new modern mansion. Fast forward to 2023 though, and this is when things started to go south. The nephew and his wife were both in the filmmaking business, actually, and they were both hit hard by the writers and actors strike. It was at this time that they fell behind on their loan payments to Elon Musk. By late July, Musk and his team filed a notice of default on the loan, which officially kicked off the foreclosure process. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are going to think that this is an absolutely savage move, but we have to remember that even in a seller finance transaction, Elon Musk is basically the bank. Like, he is the same thing as Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America. So if you stop making your payments to Elon Musk, it's just like any other homeowner who stops making their payments to Wells Fargo. They have every right to start the foreclosure process. That's how these loans work. Filing the notice of default, though, is just starting the foreclosure process. It doesn't mean that Elon is just straight up taking the house back right now, but it definitely lights a fire under the homeowners to get their payments caught up one way or another. If you're a homeowner who's in this situation where your lender files a notice of default and you can't afford to make up the payments, you kind of only have two options here. The first one is that you just give up, you let some time pass, and eventually Elon Musk will foreclose, and at that point he'll be able to take the house back from you. Or your other option is that you can go try to sell the house, and ideally, as long as you're able to sell the house for more than that first mortgage amount, then you're going to be in the clear. So these owners decided to try to go for the second option. They're going to try to sell the house, and they just listed it for sale for a big price. They're asking $12.95 million. If you go down here to the price history, you can see basically everything that we talked about. Here is when Elon Musk originally bought the house back in 2013. This is when he worked out that deal to sell it to the current owners, and here's where they just recently relisted it for sale. The description tells us that this house is not iconic just because Gene Wilder owned it, but it was also done by Robert Byrd Architecture way back in the, I think it was 1950s, yeah, 1951, so that's also kind of a big deal. Here's the house. It backs to the Bel Air Country Club, actually, so you have nice views and a lot of privacy, at least from the backyard. Here's the front of the house. You guys know me by now. This is definitely not my style, but I will admit it's got a lot of charm. There is something about it that just feels very Bel Air to me. It's hard to imagine someone paying $13 million for a house that just has a small 2-car garage. Back behind the garage, there's this little guest house, I'm guessing. It's actually kind of weird. Out back, I was expecting to be looking right at that country club, but you actually have some city views. Here's the first shot of the inside of the house. A lot of wood, a lot of brick, a lot of character. The dining room's pretty great. So it's got this bay of windows on one side, and then on the other side is this like raised fire pit area. The kitchen's a little closed off. I don't even know what you'd call this. It's not a galley kitchen. It's not an open concept, that's for sure. But this is what you get with an old house built in the 50s. I am assuming this is the master bedroom, also which comes with a fireplace. Not sure what this room is, but I like it. This shows us how we were able to get those city views from up here. You're actually kind of looking down at the country club. And oh my gosh, it always blows my mind just how lush the LA area is. Like, this is so green. You don't have anything like this out here in Arizona. The only fear I have when I see something like this, though, is wildfires. You do not want to be living in this house and have a wildfire hit this area with all of this greenery. I don't know, it just makes me kind of nervous. I'm obviously wishing the sellers the best here. It's a bummer they couldn't afford to stay in this house, but let's face it, if they get anywhere close to that asking price, they're going to make an absolute fortune when they sell. Like, they only owe Elon $6.7 million, so if they get $10 million, they're gonna walk away with a couple $1 million profit here.
Don't you have Gene Wilder's house?
I do.
That's amazing.
It's awesome.
Wow.
Yes, it's exactly what you'd expect.
Did you request that the buyer not fuck it up?
Yeah, that's a requirement.
Oh, a requirement. That's a good requirement.
Yeah.
In that case, in that house.
Yeah, it'll probably sell for less, but still, I don't care.
I'm wondering if he put like any restrictions on title, because homeowners can do this. It's possible that he put some sort of restriction on the deed, or he put some sort of thing in contract with the nephew that basically said, hey nephew, I'll sell you this house, but you have to agree to not tear it down and not sell it to somebody who's going to tear it down. If he did that, it's going to limit the buyer pool a lot, because it would basically mean that this house could only sell to somebody who's interested in keeping it exactly as it is. And if you look at the comparable properties around Bel Air, this house is not only pretty outdated when you look at just the house itself, but it's also very small compared to other similarly priced houses in the area. Now, Elon Musk has his fair share of haters, so I was pretty sure that there's a bunch of people who are gonna show up in the comments of these articles who are like, oh, what the heck, Elon is worth $240 billion. Why is he foreclosing on this poor couple? Surprisingly though, people were pretty reasonable in the comments, and most of the comments that I saw were not for or against what was happening. They're just pretty neutral. I actually really liked this guy's perspective, where he said that the real story here is Elon's generosity and kindness making the loan in the first place, and how the headlines shouldn't be reading about how Elon is foreclosing on these guys. Let's face it though, Elon forecloses is the type of a title that's going to get people to click, which is probably why I'm going to title this video with something like that. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you next week.